One of the hardest things I've ever done wasn't leaving someone who hurt me. It was leaving someone who loved me, someone kind and genuine, someone who probably would have spent the rest of their lives trying to make me happy. And somehow that made it harder because nobody really talks about what happens when you're the person who can't love someone back. Not because you're bad or because they treated you poorly, but because no matter how much you try, the feeling just isn't there. And for a long time, I thought there was something wrong with me. When I think back to that year, love wasn't even part of the plan. I had started the year trying to rebuild myself, trying to understand who I was after heartbreak, and trying to become comfortable in my own company again. If you had asked me what I wanted, I would have talked about growth, healing, friendships, and purpose. Anything except romance. At the time, I wasn't looking for someone to spend my life with. I was just trying to find my footing again, and then I met him. The strange thing is, I think he knew what he wanted before he even knew who he was. Almost immediately, he started talking about a future, a forever, a life together. The first time he said it, I laughed it off. I assumed time would fix it. I assumed the more he got to know me, the more he'd realize I wasn't the person he thought I was, but the opposite happened. The more time passed, the more certain he became. And the more certain he became, the more overwhelmed I felt. Looking back, I don't think I understood the weight of being someone's answer, being the person that they've been looking for, being the person that they've already chosen before you've even chosen them. The confusing part was that nothing was technically wrong. He was thoughtful, generous, kind. He bought me flowers, planned dates, remembered little things I mentioned, and he made me feel cared for. The kind of things people spend years wishing for. And I remember waiting for the feeling to arrive, waiting for the spark everyone talks about, waiting for my heart to catch up, because surely it would, right? I thought maybe attraction was something that grew. Maybe I just needed more time. Maybe I was still healing. Maybe I was emotionally unavailable. Maybe I was afraid. But every time I looked inward, I kept finding the same answer: silence. It took me a while to admit something that felt incredibly unfair. I liked him, just not the way he liked me, not the way he deserved to be liked. I remember moments that should have felt magical, moments movies tell us are supposed to change everything. And yet, inside me, nothing moved. No fireworks, no certainty, no feeling of arriving home, just guilt. Because I'd see how much this meant to him, and I couldn't force myself to meet him there. What I eventually learned is that compatibility and chemistry are not the same thing. Someone can check every box and still not be your person. Then came a moment everything became impossible to ignore. He introduced me to his family, his grandmother, his relatives, people who looked at me and saw a future I wasn't imagining, a future I hadn't agreed to. And suddenly, what had felt like friendship to me felt like expectation to everyone else. The pressure kept growing until eventually it spilled over. I remember him telling me how much he loved me, how much he wanted a future with me, how much he saw me in his life. And I remember feeling trapped by how sincere it was. Not because he had done anything wrong, but because I knew I couldn't give him what he was asking for. That's when I realized something painful. Sometimes being loved can feel heavy when you know you can't carry it. The conversation that ended everything didn't really feel like an ending. It felt like grief, because he wasn't asking for friendship anymore. He was hoping for something more. And I think that's what finally broke my heart. Not losing him, but realizing that staying would have hurt him more. Because as long as I stayed, there would be hope. And hope can be cruel when it's attached to a future that isn't coming. I could have kept him around, kept enjoying the friendship, kept accepting his presence in my life. But I knew what would happen. One day, I would meet someone I genuinely loved, someone I chose without hesitation, and then he would be left trying to recover from years of waiting. And now that I look back, I think letting him go was the most loving thing I could have done. For a long time, I felt guilty because society teaches us that if somebody is good to you, you should love them, as if love is a reward, as if kindness creates obligation, as if being chosen means you have to choose back. But that's never how love works. Love isn't something you owe someone because they treated you well. It isn't something you manufacture out of gratitude, and it isn't something you force because somebody deserves it. What I realized back then was that sometimes two people can both be good people and still be wrong for each other. Sometimes nobody's actually the villain. Nobody lied, cheated, or betrayed anyone. Sometimes one person sees forever and the other person only sees friendship. And sometimes loving someone means accepting that those two things are not the same. I lost a friendship when I walked away, and that still makes me sad. But when I look back at it now, I think the saddest ending would have been staying, giving him hope I couldn't fulfill, keeping him close while knowing my heart wasn't moving in the same direction. I wanted the friendship, but he wanted forever. And somewhere between those two things, I learned that letting go can be the act of care too. From all of this, one thing I can say is, some people enter your life to stay, some people enter your life to teach you something about love. And sometimes, what they teach you is that caring for someone and choosing them are not always the same thing.